All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Tuesday night. I am getting some stuff fired up over here, making sure that we've got audio. I was gonna hold off on doing this until what you want to say, till I did my normal Wednesday stream, but this one in particular, I don't know. I wanted to get a head start on it. I was pretty irritated by a video. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. I have watched the video that we're going to be going over tonight ahead of time, just so I could see what all it went over, kind of what it covered, the opinions therein, all that good stuff. And I'm not super happy with the take on it. There's an attempt on the video to try to at the beginning make it seem like it's unbiased, that sort of thing. But we're gonna go over it. We're gonna watch I'm not gonna watch the whole thing tonight. But to give you some backstory here, let me just bring up this other screen. Is that AI has been a hot topic for quite a while in the art world. And there's one dude in particular in the YouTuber sphere that was making a big push for AI. And he was definitely monetizing on having staunch opinions that we should be pro AI. And that if you're an artist that's not embracing it, that you're going to get left in the dust, and it's going to be on you if you don't embrace it, if you don't learn, if you don't use it. That would be Shadiversity. And I've seriously recorded probably 5 videos prior to starting to do live streams where I'm like, I just couldn't bring myself to post it because I'm like, I don't want to get involved in the drama. I just don't. But we're getting to the point where I feel like the foot's come off the gas for a lot of artists. No one's posting like the no AI stuff anymore, and it's starting to creep in different aspects. In fact, I literally just saw an AI video that another artist had made, and it's like, the stuff's neat. It is very neat what you can do with it, but at its fundamental core, if you have a problem with how AI is fundamentally made, then downstream, all the other things that you can bake kind of fall apart. So, Shadiversity has a brother named Jazza. And while Shadiversity was going on about why you should use AI, Jazza was actually starting to embrace AI on his channel. He was doing like little art challenges and stuff. And for literally almost 2 years, I think he says in this video, for 2 years, he didn't touch AI because he knew how controversial it had become. So the fact that he's speaking out now, especially after his brother had stirred the pot as much as he had, a lot of people were anticipating that this was going to be a middle ground approach to talking about it and that sort of thing. And I just don't feel like that's the case. So I'm going to play. I don't know if the audio is going to come through or not. Let's see here. I'm going to try playing this in the background for a quick second. Bear with me for a moment. I'm still not 100% certain how to make all the things on here work.
AI is harmful to working artists and a threat.
So it is working. Perfect. Let me just mute that. All right. So the beginning of this video is going to show you. Oh God, no. It's going to show the two different arguments that
threat
go
to a
on.
majority of modern jobs. We don't need AI. We never have. And this race to replace everything with AI is a race to the top for a very few and a drop to the bottom for everyone else. AI creates a path for a whole new plethora of people to engage in creativity and innovation. It democratizes creativity to an unprecedented level.
So this, I don't like this approach to trying to show the two arguments, because what's going to happen here is there's just going to be a bunch of talking points, and they don't actually. This is obviously him recording himself multiple times. He's not going to divulge into the finer talking points. And again, with the main point being that ultimately these programs, the databases, the data sets that they're using is the core of the argument, the core of the issue. So I guess I can end this whole conversation very early if you want. If we could just make this a 5-minute video, is that our government, I don't believe, is in any hurry to legislate one way or the other how data sets are put together. I just don't. They're spending tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars on AI development for every department they possibly can in the government. So why on earth would they want to make it harder for themselves, not only to maximize AI and its benefits, but then also to hurt their pocketbooks, because they're investing in not only the companies, but also like NVIDIA and these places making these chips. So that's the heart of the argument. Everything else is kind of a waste of breath to argue, because that's what needs to be resolved.
AI is being trained on stolen data and profited on by corporations who didn't do any of the work to create or even procure the data in the first place. If training AI is stealing when it's just learning from things that we've created, then human artists are also stealing when they look at hundreds of artworks that inspire them and learn from that and apply those techniques to their own style. Art itself is learning from and producing inspired by everything that's been created before. So just because AI learns in the same way 1,000,000 times more efficiently, better, faster than human artists doesn't make it steal. It's being developed on our...
Okay. So again, this back and forth is not the point of this video. The rest of the video has nothing to do with these arguments. Because the idea that this machine is learning the same way that a human does, just faster and more efficient, is not the truth. And that's one of the worst arguments that I've seen. What's up, Jay? I'm going on a little bit of a tirade tonight, dude. I'm sure it'll spill over into tomorrow as well. But the big thing with how machines learn is that it's using different sorting mechanisms to learn what #duck is supposed to look like. And based on those biases of whether or not something gets used and approved by the user and it gets used again and again, it's going to prioritize those images, but it's breaking all those images down into data, like almost like just individual pixels that get sprayed out onto the canvas. So the way that I draw and the way most artists draw is through construction, where you literally are drawing like stick figures and you're building off of it. Are we influenced by other artists? Yeah, absolutely. But that's why copyright law exists. That's the big delineation. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do that fall into fair use and everything else, but at the end of the day, the copyright law exists for a reason. And machines, the way that they're learning, there's already other countries that have legislated one way or the other how these companies can train their data sets for these for the machine learning. So what's up, Jay? So he said, I want to try something at GalaxyCon. I got some ideas. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, just let me know, man. I'm down. It just depends on how busy that show is. So let's hear
without our
more.
permission, and then used to take opportunities away from us. AI art holds as much value as NFTs did. Do you remember that bullshit? Remember the...
Not true. NFTs is, in my opinion, money laundering. AI, there's a lot of practical use for it. There's a lot of amazing things you can do with it.
Controversy that arose when people realized how much energy NFTs took and how bad it was for the environment. AI is worse, consumes way more power, is growing way faster. I don't even know how they're going to be able to generate enough power to get the AI capabilities they want, but they're going to do it, charging forward at an unprecedented rate in a way that's going to have devastating and irreversible effects on the environment, let alone the devastating economic impacts of taking away people's jobs and leaving them no alternative. Yes, it'll use a lot of energy, but AI will lead to AGI and ASI, which will...
I want to dwell on that for a second here.
It'll use a lot of energy, but AI will lead to AGI and ASI.
All right. So a couple things. Number one, yeah, it uses a lot of energy. And that's something that, in theory, we should only be getting better at. Especially to his point here is that if we can run AI models to see the most efficient ways to get energy on every level, from solar to wind to even nuclear and coal power, to maximize what we're currently doing by running thousands and thousands of models. Yeah. In theory, we should get way more efficient. But that's not how companies run. They don't run on being efficient. They run on profit. So like there's power plants in Northeast Ohio that I've been to that aren't even running anywhere near capacity. And they're running with a skeleton crew so they can save money and make profit. I don't know. This is a weird argument to go down with the AI thing. It doesn't totally apply to us. But this part right here, this artificial intelligence, artificial general, and artificial superintelligence, I think is a complete misnomer. If you're not familiar with it, the idea is that if we can create this bank of like all human intelligence, but not only that, but like all the processes that we do from math to physics to you name it, that you can plug into like a mega mind, then it's supposed to be like God tier intelligence. The problem is, if you say that the ultimate weapon on the battlefield is a nuclear bomb, it only matters whose hands it is in and what it gets used for. So the same thing with AGI and ASI is that, and we've seen this with Chat GPT. Like there's certain things, if you try to type in for prompts or whatever, it'll tell you can't say that, or you can't type that, or it can't respond to that, or it can't weigh in on that, because there's already barriers put in place. So this idea that there's going to be this superset of AI that is going to be God tier, it's only going to be God tier for the people that have control of it. Anything downstream from that, we just have to believe them and take them for their word, which is kind of what we already do. Many of us anyways, but let's see. Don't know if you remember, but I got an entire camera setup, Sony camera. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I remember. That's you had me do with the mic, just a quick speech there, or not speech, interview. Absolutely, dude. So yeah, swing by. I don't know what my booth number is, but swing by. We can do something real quick. But for those of you tuning in, if you could hit the like button, we are going over this video from Jazza. He's one of the big, like OG, old school artist, YouTuber guys. Just going over his take on AI. So,
which will bring us new sustainable energy solutions, cure diseases at an unprecedented level, and help solve the climate crisis once and for all. Yes, in the near term, AI is going to replace jobs and take some opportunities away. In the same way that cars and trains were a threat to the horse and carriage industry, and the camera is a threat to painters. But new jobs and avenues for creative expression and leisure will become available. If you think AI art is bad, AI video generation is going to be even worse. Video evidence will no longer be admissible in court because anything can be fabricated. People can make pornography of others without their consent. And of course,
there's a lot of points being made here. The idea that technology is going to render some people obsolete, that's absolutely true. At the same time, if you think about it this way, like the reference that always comes up is the camera or like Photoshop, those sort of things. The big difference is it's not generating something from pre-existing work. So like a camera, I can't just push a button on a camera and have a picture of the Great Wall of China. I have to physically go there. I have to get the lighting down right, all that stuff. Whereas generative AI, you can just type it in and it's going to spit out an amalgamation of everybody else's pictures of the Great Wall. So again, this is illustrative what he's doing here to illustrate both sides of the arguments.
Dead celebrities will continue to be profitable for media conglomerates who can continue to use their image and voices long after they're gone. On top of that, AI developers have no clue how to properly safeguard AI against misuse and barely have an idea even how it works, let alone how to control it. AI is just a path for corporations to get more investments and boost their stock value with shallow marketing gimmicks. Meanwhile,
a lot of that's true. I know there's a lot of consultants out there that are chomping at the bit to implement AI everywhere they can under the hopes that it's going to save companies a lot of money. And when consulting companies save their clients money, they get paid more money. So there is a lot of room for AI to help people out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the sake of artists. But this is the bigger conversation that's not happening with AI that needs to, is where are you getting these data sets? It's one thing if you train a machine to know different functions for business. It's like anything you plug into a spreadsheet, like your profit loss analysis and all that other stuff. If you want to plug that into a machine where someone can plug in their own data, great. But if you're going to plug in a bunch of individuals' data, perhaps maybe like a Verizon or a Sprint or an Apple decides that they're going to start sending all your biometric data from your, I don't know, your Apple Watch or your Fitbit or your Ring doorbell. If they're going to start sending that to companies that want to use it for their data sets, chances are we're already agreeing to that when we hit the I accept the terms and conditions. So, and the point here that he says, like, people don't know how AI works. None of the people that are arguing on YouTube or in our space truly understand how AI works. I have a decent idea, but if I were to articulate it in front of anyone who actually did the programming, I would probably do a piss poor job of explaining it.
We can all see the purposeless dystopia that this is leading us to. It's the next step of progress for humanity. AI is already empowering small businesses and individual creatives to compete at a scale and in a way they never had the opportunities to before. AI is the most groundbreaking technological revolution ever since electricity or the steam engine. And the potential for AI to empower humanity and help solve our most challenging problems is unfathomable. If anything, AI will lead to more people in the long term being able to indulge in creativity because it'll lead to a post-scarcity society. A society where you don't need to figure out how to pay your bills with art, you can just make art. And people who haven't been able to be a part of that in the past will have more opportunities in the future than they've ever had before.
I suppose if you're in a situation where you trust your government, this might seem like a golden dream here. Like, oh, so we can just hang out and make art and let the machines do all the work. I just don't believe that's going to happen. With our government as corruptible as it is, yeah, right. I just don't see this shaking out where it doesn't turn into dystopia. Let's see. What was that? I think it's like iRobot. There's a lot of people speculating like what all AI could do from like a cyber warfare thing. I don't think it's so much AI on its own as it would be hackers employed by the different governments. So if you do have a bunch of autonomous, tanks and drones and everything else, instead of shooting drones out of the sky, perhaps you have somebody that's hacking them and I don't know, either rendering them useless. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you can do with technology, and I don't know the direction things are going to go, but
I get it. You're sick to death of hearing about AI, but we need to talk about AI. The question is, can we?
There's a commercial. All right. So most people are sick of hearing about AI. They've already formed their opinions. I don't think you're going to change too many people's minds. The problem is attrition. And the longer time goes on and nothing's done about it, sides start to wear down and things start to become more accessible and more acceptable. So the idea that like, okay, well, I took all the time to draw this picture. Now
possible.
I can take my illustration, dump it into an AI video generator, and I can actually animate my drawings. This is a thing that exists. You can go on right now. You can try it for free on a lot of these sites, and it's pretty freaking neat. But should we be doing that? From an ethics perspective or from a legal perspective, there's a lot of things to be debated there. But there's already comic shops that I follow, comic like influencers for YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff, that are already making statements like, I don't care if this cover was AI generated. I think it's a dang cool cover. I'm buying it anyways. So, I mean, people that a year ago were no AI, or something like, oh, except for when we do this or except for when we do that.
Because the hardest part about having a conversation about something so divisive is listening. The purpose of this video is not to argue for or against either of these lines of argument, but it's also not intended to just be a fence-sitting exercise. I want to be productive, but it's going to be difficult because they both have legitimate points. Neither is completely right, neither is completely wrong. And it's going to be impossible for us to have any sort of reasonable conclusions or rational discussions unless we step back from the black and white of the argument and dwell in the uncomfortable gray. I want to share.
Feel free to, yeah, no, I didn't want to wait to put this one up. I watched this earlier today and I'm like, I know it's going to spill over until tomorrow, so I figure I would get a jump on this now. I was mad earlier. I was so mad. But feel free to plug your Twitch while you're here. If you guys watch any streamers on Twitch, make sure to give Flower a follow.
My opinions and experience, though it's limited, but also use this video as a catalyst to open up to yours so I can listen to you. So we can all listen to each other, but have the opportunity to have an actual conversation about it.
So I'm going to give you this whole video. He kind of breaks it down into wearing the white shirt as the altruistic artist who absolutely no AI versus the black shirt pro AI guy that there's no reason you shouldn't be able to do it, who he views as the wrong mentality. And he's wearing the gray shirt. That's a good freeze frame. Gray shirt to show that he's somewhere in between. And the more this video goes on, especially towards the end, I don't feel like his shirt is this gray. I feel like it is a very black shirt that he's wearing. He just wants to pretend that it's gray. Yeah, so Jazza, he's a pretty big YouTuber artist that his brother is very pro AI and has been more or less shunned by the art community for it. And I think everybody had it in their mind that since Jazza hasn't said much, that he was on the artist side. And as you're going to see in this video, that may or may not be the case.
About all this. So I guess I've always considered myself as something of a creativity futurist. I have loved being at the forefront of where technology...
Here's the whole deal. He goes on to say that he was early in animation, using computers to do animation and stuff. He also... I remember seeing some of these videos. He was playing around with early AI art generators where you could scribble something or type in a basic thing and it would give different images. He would pit artists on Fiverr versus AI art generators to see who could do better work. And for a while, it was kind of fun. And then over time, he talks about here.
Do your dry eyes?
He talks about how there are these artists that have been directly impacted, that you can tell it's their art that's being lifted when it's actually spitting out, I don't know, their signatures in the corner. That there are definitely some major implications here. And the fact that this artist, I forget who, Loish, I'm not familiar with Loish, that this person spent an entire lifetime developing their art and are continuing to improve their art, that just about anybody can sit down and in a few keystrokes pretty much lift their style altogether. It's pretty rough.
And as a prominent art content creator, it was pretty clear that
just to finish up this segment that he's on, is that he's become conflicted on it, and for the last couple of years he hasn't said much of anything, just because he was so gung-ho about it early on. He actually had his brother on his show, and they were showing how to like make your prompts better and how to improve them, and it was really disappointing because, you know, Shad's over his shoulder going on like, hey, you know, I really like how Artgerm colors, so in this prompt box, you can actually add in the style of Artgerm's coloring, that sort of thing. Directly lifting his style. So
I've basically steered away from making any definitive statements or sharing any opinions for or against AI art. There are things I detest and disagree with or are fearful of. I've been scammed by AI art. I, for $99, purchased something that was advertised to me, purported to be tutorial books by skilled.
So this book in particular, I watched this video, spent $100 on this thing, and most of the hand-drawn images in it are just AI art with no real description as to how to draw the thing. So it's not very instructional. It's more like a reference book. Allegedly, if I remember correctly, this book also had a bunch of directly stolen images from How to Draw the Loomis Method. So that's a direct copyright infringement. AI is here and it's going to stay. The government is throwing money in this for a reason. Absolutely. And it's not for the little guy's pockets. Absolutely. If you're for it, be for it, but be prepared for others to be upset. Yeah, it is dividing parts of the market. I think most people aren't educating themselves on it, because why would they? They've got 1,000 other things to do. This is actually a pretty niche thing to be, but because it is spilling over into everything and we get literally no say-so in any of it, I find it quite alarming, as I knock my mic over. I find it quite alarming that our government doesn't care and they just want to get rich. They want to implement it. And it's also because if we don't do it first, China will beat us to it. And this AGI, this whatever you call it, artificial general intelligence is going to be like the silver bullet to solving everything. I just don't believe that's true. I think it's an excuse to throw caution to the wind and spend a ton of taxpayer dollars on developing AI. Absolutely. I think it's just like when we were trying to get to the moon. It was an excuse to throw a ton of money at our space program for really what was turning out to be military superiority. And in this case, I don't even know that it's military superiority. I think it's just get rich quick. Because if we control it on our ends, then, and we have the chip providers and everything else, then we get super rich. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the cancel culture thing is interesting with AI. If you accuse an artist of using AI, it's the same as saying that they're a fraud. And if it's on them at that point to prove that they're not. So that's why every now and then I'll put up time-lapse videos and stuff. And occasionally I'll see other artists' time-lapse videos and be like, you're faking it, man. You're faking it. I'm not going to call you out because I'm not here to step on anyone's toes. But I am going to make a little bit of noise. I'm going to make a little bit of noise. Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know whatever happened with the whole was it Taiwan that they were talking about possibly invading over the microchip manufacturing and that sort of thing. Like, I think it's absolutely insane what we are doing to ourselves in this in our planet in the sake of trying to chase AI. It's wild. Buck wild.
Artists that turned out to be AI generated crap that I could learn nothing from. And
this is like the majority of the book was just photo reference.
On really good artists that I should have been able to give my time.
There's only one you.
I need to get like YouTube Premium so I don't have all these ads. Yeah, so that was for Spawnuary. There is an art contest from Todd McFarlane last January, where each week of January there was a prompt, like a different Spawn character, that if your selection won, like if your submission to the contest won, it would be published for a cover for Spawn, which is pretty cool. There was some controversy anyways with it, but one of the rules was that you couldn't use AI art. It had to be hand drawn. And one of the winners was a self-proclaimed AI artist. And then they allegedly changed the hashtags on that one for the one that won, allegedly. So it didn't have like the Mid-Journey tag anymore. It didn't have AI art tagged on it anymore. And when people were calling him out, he was saying that he used programs like Procreate, and everyone's like, "Then show your videos. It automatically records a time lapse from the time you start that project file." And he's like, "I don't have to. I won. You guys are just bitter." Like, okay. At this point, as an artist, like, if you're going to claim that you're doing things a certain way, you got to be able to show receipts. It's plain and simple. I don't have audio on.
I've used it as part of my early processes, my brainstorming and conceptualization, and as a means to expand the scope of the work that I create with artists I employ. For example, I've been developing a role-play system called Gateway Roleplay, very much a personal project at the start. I plan to turn it into a product, but in the early conceptualization phases, I've been using AI to create card art. There's more.
So this is one of my biggest gripes. So this is in the art world. This is where we're starting to make concessions already, is that I just use AI to brainstorm and to come up with ideas and to do the prototyping. I'm like, dude, that's supposed to be the fun part of art, is the coming up with the idea. So instead of sitting down with a sketchbook and sketching out 30 different things, you're just going into a prompt generator, typing in the thing that you want, and then generating 30 different things. It's so freaking lazy. Which I guess, do whatever you want to do as an artist. I mean, some artists just go to other artists' websites and just more or less steal other people's ideas. So I'm working on a project now that's supposed to be like a medieval fantasy kind of thing. And I needed to come up with some character ideas. So I drew, that's a whole page of characters. And you know what? I don't think I'm using any of them. In fact, now that I'm looking at it, no. There's not one on here that I'm using. But it helped me refine my style. And by the end of it, I liked the overall style I was drawing the characters in. But I didn't like any of the characters themselves. Now, some of them I might use later. Some of them weren't bad. Were kind of neat. They just weren't fitting the niche I was looking for. But at the end of the day, like, if someone wants to ask me how I do what I do, I can show them. I can show them.
Been a proof of concept and a way for me to get inspired by the ideas, not a product in and of itself. In fact, we recently released the alpha to the patrons over on Tabletop Time Roleplay and replaced all of the art with our art produced by Alicia. There's nothing new or fancy with all the different cards. They're basically just put into a category that they share the art for. You can sort of see how AI was part of that initial process of getting the ball rolling and making something feel real. Speaking of Alicia, those of you who follow this channel know that she's an artist who's worked with us for over 3 years, well before this AI stuff kicked up. And Alicia works more for us now than she did even when she started. So AI hasn't done anything to reduce her workload. If anything, we've found it's given her more opportunities. Take, for example, the opening automatic to our recently launched roleplay series, Lucha Vera, which wasn't going to be a thing we would have made unless we had AI's help. The very early prototypes of the animatic were pretty much solely scrapped together AI purely because all of the effort and work needed to go into the motion and the transition.
Okay. this is one of those things again where we start making these concessions. Like, well, I've only got one artist working on this project. They don't know how to animate, or they don't know how to do this video thing that we want to do. But we got this AI video program. We just slide over there and we can just plug everything in. And if you didn't have AI, let's just think about it this way. If you didn't have AI, so far in this project, he's used AI to do the prototyping. So you would need a concept artist. And now you need someone to do basic editing and animation. Like, this isn't, what he's showing here isn't complicated. It's a bunch of stills that are kind of sliding around. There's some fill, what do they call it? Interpolated layers, where it's like kind of showing a motion blur and that sort of thing. It's not difficult stuff to do. So you would need to hire an animator and that sort of thing. So right there, you've got 2 or 3 artists that don't have work. Even if it's just a quick gig, that might be a couple days work for somebody to sketch out a bunch of demo cards, because it's financially restrictive. You know what else is financially restrictive? Making comic books. And I didn't have money myself to hire an inker or a colorist, but we made this one. We made this one. We got Darkseid here somewhere. I've actually made several teaser videos for my Kickstarters. I've done voiceover stuff on my own. I actually wrote music for some of these. It's a freaking excuse, man, that it couldn't be done without. Okay, you may not have been able to make this video without AI, but you could have made something. But we go back to the core argument that was at the very beginning of this video, is that if you fundamentally ignore how AI is doing what it's doing, then you get into the weeds with all these other little conversations. But if you just look at the core of, it's using a data set that is pretty much lifted artwork from our entire human existence, and now other people get to profit on it, and people that made the art are losing out on opportunities, it's kind of BS. So I don't know. I have talked to multiple artists now about doing inking for me. That's about the only thing I could probably afford to pay for now. And even then, it's going to be coming directly out of my pocket until a Kickstarter hits. And just the thought that I'm getting to that point where I might be able to do that is freaking exciting. So I don't know. As a business owner, you got to work within your limitations. And if you're not creative enough to figure out a way to do it easier, then you got to roll up your sleeves and just do the work. Comics Elite won't work with Lance Footer anymore because of his anti-AI social. Really? His anti-AI social media. Perfect. I'll check that out. What was he saying anti-AI on social media? That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think you need to bash AI artists. I think calling out, if these publishers that are making up artists so they can use AI and say oh, Jeffy did it. And Jeffy isn't really anybody. He doesn't have any sort of social media presence, but his artwork's freaking amazing out of nowhere. It probably deserves to be called out, but it's happening more and more with comics. A couple years ago, people were making a hard line that they wouldn't work with AI artists or anyone who used AI for any part of it. As time goes on, it's we'll use it for our backgrounds. We'll use it for this. We'll use it for that. So, oh no. It's bad when it's that obvious. If they literally have too many fingers, That's like the first thing you check. Everybody knows to check for fingers. There was an artist, I shouldn't even say an artist, an art vendor at one of the Comic Cons that they were selling the super shiny acrylic prints. They looked great, and they all looked amazing until you actually looked at them. And there's one where there's a character holding a katana, and if you just count the fingers, there's literally like 12 fingers. Like, come on, guys. The other one would be on hair. This one is a lot harder to spot, but it's still where the problems tend to occur. Hair should come out to a point, and what ends up happening with a lot of AI is when it comes to that point, it doesn't know what to do all the time. So sometimes it'll actually scoop back up like a fish hook. So if you're looking at something, especially if it's a girl, like all of the female AI art is always freaking amazing, gorgeous, whatever at first glance. But if you look at their hair, almost every time it's in the hair. All right, Flavel, hey, I appreciate you stopping by. I will be on tomorrow. We'll probably still be talking about this stuff, but feel free to drop your Twitch in the comments there. So if folks want to follow you over on Twitch, they can check you out. See ya.
And it gave us something to really anchor to in the creative process. The process then turned into one of creating the art all the way from scratch, but of course, using some of those anchor points as a foundational element. The final animatic is 100% painted by Alicia, but of course, it's clear to see that she used and benefited from AI in the process. And I used and benefited AI in the process of expanding the scope of something that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford to do, at least nowhere.
So again, this is the challenge I have with the we can't afford to do it thing. Let me see here. I'm going to see if I can't share something with you guys real quick. So I am also working on my own card game, much like Jazza is. Here we go. Maybe. Let's see if I can share my screen. I've got too many windows. Let's just do share the whole screen. Perfect. I might have lost audio when I did that. All right. So I'm making these cards. And I'm like, man, it would be so much easier if I just cheaped out on them and use like a generic background or what have you. But especially, I'm not doing that different of a style from what they're doing. I'm still doing a different light gradients and all this stuff. But each of these backgrounds took about half an hour to do. When you're doing this cartoony style, now, granted, this one I could do a little bit more with the lighting and that sort of stuff, and I am copy and pasting some of these potions in here. The final card will be different, but like, it doesn't take that long, man. I don't know. I feel like the financial thing and the time thing is a crutch to just be like, we're going to use something that makes everything a lot easier and faster. Let's see. This one is going to be more of an all ages. And the closest that you're going to get is something like this. I feel like that's even racy for some families to let their kids be playing. So I might have to cover her up a little bit. But yeah, I'm making something that is an all ages thing. So families want to play that sort of thing. And the idea is, I'll show you a couple more. The idea here is that the game is going to be played in a way where when you start playing, you're fighting monsters. So you're not fighting your buddy. You and your buddy, or you by yourself, can fight monster cards until you get comfortable with the game. And eventually, once you get bored of playing, fighting just monster cards, and you're confident with how the game is played, then you can start fighting each other. So we got different character cards, got different kind of weapons that you can get. And then these are all drawn by me too. I didn't use AI, not once. And then depending on how the Kickstarter goes, we will possibly be doing like expansion decks and booster packs and stuff. I think for the Kickstarter, we might do like an exclusive, like if we back a certain amount or if we get to a certain stretch goal, we might make a couple exclusive holofoils that would go out. The one piece of feedback that I got from a couple of card shops, comic book shops, is that the last thing they want is another trading card game right now. They have so many trading card games that are eating up a ton of real estate at the counter that they're really just not interested in stocking 1,000 different things. However, they said if you can make the whole game in a box and then potentially have booster packs or expansion packs or that sort of thing, then that's more approachable. But start off with game in a box as opposed to full trading card games. So holofoils, there might be some Kickstarter application there. We'll see about that one too. But I think the way we're going to do it is just launch the game at first, which is going to be a pretty significant financial investment. So hopefully the Kickstarter, whenever I get around to doing that, hopefully that takes off well. And then I might make stretch goals that have things like booster packs or possibly even because they're just different like elementals that the characters can use. So kind of like a Magic the Gathering or a Pokemon where you can use different elemental attacks. You could potentially have whole booster packs or expansion packs that are just geared towards those different elements. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a lot of work. But it's so far it's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about the gameplay. I've got a buddy that's been playing Magic for like 20 years, 30 years. That's helping me come up with the rule sets and the gameplay. And I think it's going to be pretty neat. All right. Let's see. Can we talk AI? There we go.
Near the scale that we were able to. AI basically allowed us to 10x the scope of what we could have done as an animated intro without 10xing Alicia's time, which frankly, like I don't have 10x the budget for the intro. We just got 10x the result because we used AI as part of the initial workflow. A lot of these examples are actually from my Roleplay channel because it's my lowest budget channel. It's the channel that I've always skimped and saved on. Before AI, our Roleplay.
All right, so this is all him just justifying why he's using AI to the capacity that he does. And what it boils down to is time and money. And it's mostly for things like backgrounds, that sort of thing. I know there's a lot of YouTubers that will use it for their thumbnails. And in a way, it's like, I was even tempted when I started doing this. I'm like, man, it'd be so easy if I could just go into an art generator and make funny meme style thumbnails. But I was like, you know what? If I believe that it's a problem to begin with, then any amount of it's not okay. And I don't care if other people use it. It falls into the it is what it is category until actual legislation happens. But that's kind of where I'm at with it. Yeah, I mean, it's super tempting. It's super easy to just type into a prompt like you're Google searching for something. But yeah, it ultimately it is someone's job, and it is, I don't know, someone could potentially be making money. That's where we got to get creative as business owners and all that good stuff.
So while I'm in the mood to confess, I want to be real with you about my whole art journey. I've technically been stealing ever since I started creating. I have drawings here that I made when I was 10 years old. This was one of my original characters, a super villain alien. Remind you of any short, high-pitched, Kakarot-hating villains?
So This one is an interesting. This is what a lot of people that are kind of in the middle of the argument or the debate go on about is the copyright infringement and that sort of thing. He, like, if this was a character he made for a comic book today, he'd probably be fine as long as he didn't call him literally Frieza. The whole copyright thing or even fair use, there's so much that you can do, so much that you can get away with. I'm not going to play this whole segment. If you guys want to watch the video, just go over to Jazza's. Maybe I'll put this in the maybe I should put this over here in the chat and pin this in case you guys want to watch it later, which I definitely recommend watching it. Get your take on it. But he goes on to talk about his early art and even stuff that he's done later in life, that it's copying other things or borrowing from other things. He talks about how early on he used Linkin Park music in some of his animations and he didn't pay Linkin Park any money. And like technically, if he monetized anything from that, technically he owes Linkin Park money. Like, so I don't know how much admission of guilt there is. I don't know if he actually made money on any of those, but there's this thought process that if you're using other people's artwork as inspiration, that you're doing exactly what AI is doing, and it's not even close to being the same. What AI does is it takes an image like he's holding up, and it takes all the keywords associated with it. This is the best of my knowledge. That's how it works. It then diffuses it into pixels, and it associates those pixels and that data with that keyword. So if you type in that keyword again for this alien creature, it has an idea as to where those pixels should go. And if you want that alien to be standing on a boat or in a store, it can take those pixels associated with those things and then match them together. And over time, as the program gets used more, images get rejected or approved, the machine gets better, it starts weeding out bad data, and it gets smarter. But when it comes to drawing as an artist, like everything that I do, let's see if I got an example here. I got stuff laying around all over the place. I'll just go back to this because you can kind of see, like it all starts as like stick figures and stuff and basic shapes, and then you build onto it. It's called construction drawing. Loomis method is a big part of that, where it's like, yeah, you can have style influences. So when you get down to the details like eyes and eyebrows or line weights and stuff, like there's different things that can influence you, but that's where copyright law comes into. And copyright law has set the precedent for a long time, and actually set the precedent on AI art, saying that nothing that's generated whole cloth by AI generators can be copywritten. The only thing that you can copyright is if you manually change anything on that image. So half the debate there is already resolved, and he's confessing to stealing. We have different influences. We've already had this conversation as a society. That's why copyright law exists. So we're going to skip all that. And this is where he has his more or less emotional breakdown. I'm exaggerating. Jazza, if you ever watch this, which I doubt you will, would love to talk with you about all this. So if you're hanging out in the chat, feel free to message me. But I feel like this is the part where he tries to explore this gray space that he's
for
in.
almost 2 years now. This is the first time I've done it in any sort of open way, and it's really uncomfortable. I don't know how to do this, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything in particular. I recorded this video 5 months ago, and it's just sat unchanged since. Partially because it feels very inconclusive, like I'm not really contributing anything concrete, but I also feel like I can't. On top of that, I can't help but see people who put any opinion that's even remotely neutral on AI art being attacked for their stance. Take the recent videos by Ergo Josh, where he initially tried to explore AI art in a non-copyright infringing way and was met with a huge lashback.
So if you weren't aware already, last week I made a video where I asked you all if you wanted to see a review of how I used AI technology in a way in my work that I believed was as ethical as possible, at least at the individual level. Now, almost all of you that responded not only rejected that idea completely, but you expressed your extreme distaste in AI. If you can imagine, it's not fun to see 100 people every day saying that they're disappointed in you when you felt like they loved you and supported you. It's really tough.
Which just gives me huge...
So the whole AI thing, it is alluring. It is a powerful, powerful machine. But if you boil it down to like your core values on it, if you truly believe that most of these things that are out there, like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, all this, are using compromised data sets, then you can't be okay with any amount of it. And this is the part where I think there's so many of these creators out there that they want to be on the forefront of it. They don't want to be left behind because AI isn't going away. So if you stay on the forefront, you stand to benefit the most. But there's so many people that, like, if you show them a thing or they buy a thing and they find out that it was made in part or in whole by AI, they're going to lose their minds. They're going to feel like they were cheated. So
reservations when even the most concerned and ethical artists that I might think of approach it in that way and are attacked because of it. And finally, this video is just...
So the most ethical artists I know are attacked for it. I feel like this mindset coming from this neutral territory that Jazza claims to be in is that how's comes we can't do it? How's comes we can't have the nice thing? He's a nice guy. He does things right. We're glossing over that core argument.
That unreleased and unworked on, because I know that once I open this can of worms and start talking about where my stance is on AI art, there's no going back. But I also think there's no other way forward.
So it's interesting. It was about 2 years, I think he says in this, that he hasn't posted anything about AI, one way or the other. Because early on, Jazza was very much like, how do we incorporate this? How do we use this? How do we stay on the forefront? And his brother, Shadiversity, who's a much more controversial figure, he went in 110%. He was even telling artists that, like, we're going to get left behind. We're going to get left in the dust if we don't embrace it. We stand to benefit the most. You would be stupid not to jump on the AI train. And that would be a whole nother video to go over. I would probably lose my mind. I actually posted something on one of Shad's early videos about AI. And I was pretty heated. I was professionally heated. But one of the mods deleted my comment because I think I made too much sense. Whoops. So all that to say, I think the reason we're getting this video from Jazza now is that he's getting to the point where the cat's going to come out of the bag that he's using AI, and he doesn't want the community to hate him. I think he wants to test the waters with this video to see what the reaction's going to be.
Problem is, in doing this, I feel like I'm committing to delivering something later down the line, and I also actually can't fully commit to that. For example, if this video doesn't perform well, YouTube and its algorithm is teaching me I can't invest the time and resources I would need to make this bigger AI video I would like to explore, because...
And that's just it. That's exactly it. If y'all get mad at me, then I can't do the thing I want to do. That's it. He wants to be able to use AI, but if there's a backlash, then he can't do it. And it could potentially set him back or ruin him if the community rejects it.
At the moment, YouTube is just a bit of a fight for survival, and I've got to keep the business running. But I believe it's really important to see if we can start having this conversation. I also need an opportunity to say pretty clearly that there are parts of both of those arguments at the start of the video that I agree with and disagree with. So allow me a couple of minutes to share with you the grey of where I'm at with AI and AI art. First and foremost, I believe AI art is not a craft. No matter how anyone might attempt to think about it or justify it, you can no more call yourself an artist if the work you're producing is built on the foundation of artificial intelligence than you could call yourself an artist of the skill level of someone whose work you are tracing.
So the fun part about that, I feel like that's a direct shot at his brother, because Shad has gone on to make an AI channel. He hasn't posted anything in a long time, but Shad was trying to say that he's an amazing artist because of what he can do with AI. Now, granted, Shad's process with AI is way more involved than what most people are doing. He's actually bouncing stuff into Photoshop and manipulating it, and then feeding it back into the AI generator. But as controversial as Shad was, and as much traction as he was getting with the pro AI crowd, it's funny timing-wise when he quit posting. Because he even would make comments that all he has to do to make money on Twitter is post something about AI and get a bunch of rage bait. And suddenly, once his, I don't know if his Kickstarter or Indiegogo for his book came around, and suddenly it was down to like the last week or two. I don't know for sure, but I think he was hemorrhaging backers because of how vitriolic he was being on Twitter. And suddenly he wasn't posting as much about AI. Interesting.
It is simply not your work or skill being used. However, I also think AI and AI art is really interesting and exciting, and I feel like I'm not allowed to think that. I believe the villains are not people who use AI art, but the companies and capitalist system that seeks to benefit off of the work of others without consent or transparency. And
that's what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. Simply by using it for your video intros or whatever. That's, if you want to accuse capitalistic companies for profiteering off of the backs of others, that's what you're doing. That's what you're advocating for. So that you're saying you have a problem with what you're doing.
And I believe there is something deeply dystopian about AI imagery and videos, and that we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg yet as to the destructive possibilities of these technologies. I believe that AI in the hands of manipulative or opportunistic people can be really damaging to the art community and artists as a whole. But I also believe limiting the conversation to AI art is reductive and kind of misses the point, because the bigger picture of what's happening with AI and the possibilities there are all encompassing and hugely monumental.
So this is where I fall back on my rage against machine mentality, is that there's a portion of artists and even the general population that say it's here to stay. Pandora's box is open. It's not going away. It is guaranteed to stay if we don't do anything. It will only be a matter of time before concessions are made and Artist Alley starts getting taken over by AI artists, and all your comic books start to feature even more AI art. A lot of stuff has already crept into comics over the years, like 3D assets being used for backgrounds. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. I'm not here to debate that. I hand draw all my stuff. I would prefer that my comic books be 100% hand drawn. But that's the thing, is like, if you don't stand up and draw a line at some point, then it just keeps encroaching. Now, to your point earlier, Jay, with like, we don't necessarily need to go bash people, but like, I'm not working with anybody that uses AI.
And in that vein, I do believe that AI, more than anything, has the potential to propel humanity into a post-scarcity environment, to perhaps even work past capitalist systems, to tackle things like climate change and diseases in an
And I don't like that we're hinging AI art into saving the world. Because number one, I don't think the world's going to get saved by AI. I just don't. I know allegedly, I believe that they were able to get the first cold fusion plant fired up using an AI algorithm that they had done a ton of different test models. Might they be able to find cures for cancer and stuff with it? Maybe. Am I holding my breath? No, I'm just not. The fact that we haven't cured these things yet, and we're hoping that if we pour all of our current knowledge into a computer, that the computer will figure it out, just doesn't make sense to me. Now, mathematically speaking, and if you can plug in, almost like on a spreadsheet where you can plug in this plus this equals this, if this, like a logic system, then that makes sense to a degree. But I think a lot of people are putting this bigger hope that AI is going to save the day and it's going to be the future. And that's why we need to embrace using it for like thumbnails or for our prototyping. I think it's an excuse. I think it's weak.
Precedented way. But of course, to do that, we can't really trust that that would be done in the hands of a capitalist system. But if there's a way that we can work towards utopia over dystopia, I do think that AI can propel us into a future of positive possibilities not even yet imagined. So
the Middle East has been warring since the beginning of recorded history. Africa has been in a state of civil wars and conflicts since the beginning of history. There's been war as far as our history goes back that we have documented. I don't think AI is going to save the day. At the end of the day, this whole thing is about power and money. Because if we get this AGI first or this ASI first, then we stand to benefit the most financially. Because then all these other countries are going to want to buy phones that have AGI plugged in, or they want it for their business systems, their CRMs that they use, and all this stuff. That's the space race. Because if we can get there first, then we stand to benefit financially the most. And then the downstream effect is the companies that are implementing it, they're implementing it to save money on what? Manpower. At the end of the day, this has nothing to do with benefiting you and I. So for me to give an inch on the idea that I can cut some corners and use AI to do this or do that, no, that compromises my core values on the whole thing. And you can call me backwards, you can call me antiquated, whatever you want to say, old school. The vast majority of technology I've seen, while there's been a lot of great moves forward, the folks that benefit the most from us, they aren't benefiting us as a society. I think the crutch of technology has made us dumber. I think it's made us weaker. I think it's destroying families. I think it's destroying our minds. It's getting us to the point where we're not thinking anymore. We just want this magic little rectangle to tell us what to think and what to do. And the easier and more utopian our lives are, allegedly, the better it is. I just don't believe we're going to get there, man. I don't think our governments, the way that they are, I don't think that could ever happen. No, I just don't. I just don't. We're too greedy. We're too power hungry. And we don't want to concede power. Ideally, let's just play it out. Let's just pretend that America is the first country to come up with AGI, or the artificial superintelligence that has all the processing power that can figure out all these things. Do you think that we're going to want all the countries to be on the same level as us? Or do you think we would want them to be subservient to us? At least a little. Like even our allies, like we still want them to be down just a little bit. I mean, that's what happened after World War II, when we decided that instead of having effectively a militia-led military, that we were going to have a standing army, that it was going to not just be a standing army, it was going to be the most powerful superpower in the world. The thought that another country could be stronger than us with their military is like, we can't let that happen. What would happen if we weren't the most powerful? You think anything's going to change with AI? No. We're going to want to have a leg up on everybody. We are not designed, mentally speaking, from a survival standpoint, to say, like, we all need to play nice. Now, here's the thing, though. That's our governments. Most people, like you and I, we wouldn't have a problem if we were on the same playing field as someone who lived in China, Korea, India. Like, if anything, like if we went over there, we'd be like, yeah, you should have clean drinking water. You should have clean air. Like, the fact that it's not mandatory that any company that we work with outside of our country doesn't have the same health and safety standards or environmental standards is bonkers. Like, the reason why we've used like Malaysia, China, India, all these other countries for outsourcing the different things that we need, it's not just because the labor's cheaper. It's because they don't have the same environmental concerns. I think it was Malaysia. Is it Malaysia? During COVID, and I could be wrong on all this, so this is just from my memory. They had like the biggest nitrile glove producing companies in the world. I believe at the time, I don't believe any nitrile gloves were being made in the US. Could be wrong on that. But apparently the working standards over there were so abysmal, and they were using borderline slave labor, from what I recall, to get it done. It's appalling. And at the end of the day, like, we don't think about that. We just want to have the stuff. So AI is going to save the day? Really? I just don't freaking believe it. We can't even get Congress to vote on daylight savings. Like, and we expect that AI is going to come in and fix everything. It's absolutely bonkers that anyone is even pretending that that's the direction that we're going. Because at the end of the day, I think it's healthcare and pharmaceuticals is like 20% of our economy or something like that. I heard something like that. I could be completely wrong. You're going to tell me that all these companies that are producing all these drugs and everything else are going to be like, you know what? It's cool if we just come up with cures now. I just don't freaking believe it. And that's where he's kind of making some snarky comments about capitalism. No one wants to set their guns down first. No one's going to want to give up their money first. No one's going to want to give up their power first. Plain and simple. So for everyone that's holding on to that part of the argument to justify why we need to embrace AI, I don't buy it for a second. I just don't. I would give a different counter argument and say, okay, well, how about this? How about, so we don't have to worry about AI going buck wild and nuking the entire earth, how about, in preparation for AI making our lives better, just to make sure there's no, like, you know, monkey wrench in the system that could potentially nuke ourselves with AI going buck wild, how about we be the first country to completely disarm our nuclear arsenal? How about we do that? No one's gonna be like, yeah, we should do that. Or they would be like, well, we would, but we need Russia to give up theirs first, and we need China. Like, dude, that's where we're stuck. We want to pretend that we can move towards utopia. We want to pretend that we can do these things, but that's not the world we live in. It's just not. And as long as there's evil people in the world, they're out there trying to hack us every day. They're trying to steal. They're trying to do horrible things to other people. I just don't believe that AI is going to make it all better. I just don't. At the end of the day, it's more money and it's more control over us. That's it. And that is why I am going to continue to rage against the machine. Sorry, I've been missing out on the chat here. Yep. That's absolutely it. Every country wants to be on top, and there's some that are just comfortable floating around the top dogs. It's very possible that we do. There's a lot of money in treatments. But it's also possible that we think we know how to cure things, but what works for one person or one subset of humanity may not work across the board. So that's one. I'm kind of torn on that one, but I do believe we have more effective medicines. Me too, to an extent, I guess. But it turns out a lot of the things that I'm wary of and suspicious of, I got plenty of reason to be wary. That whole era of 2020 was very eye-opening. I was an essential worker, and I'm done with this video. Just seeing the inner workings of our economy during a global crisis and how people were acting, not even just governments, just regular people. I have no faith in the system. I have no faith in fellow man. I just don't. If something were to happen, just give this as an example, and we can tie this into AI. If we had another outbreak of something even more deadly than COVID was, let's say we had something that was just like 60% mortality rate. Like people are just dropping everywhere. Like literally billions of people die. Are we any more prepared for that level of a plague than we were prior to 2020? I'd say we're probably in a worse state. I think we're probably worse off. For a number of different reasons. And I'm not going to get into all that tonight. But translate that over to AI. Like, I don't trust the government in general to begin with for a number of reasons. Look at the Church Commission. Look at Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra. These were all real things that were declassified. This isn't like conspiracy stuff. This is like legit things that were uncovered that we were responsible for and played part of. This mentality that we need to be the top dog all the time, I think is toxic. I think it causes a lot of problems, and it gives us a blank check to pursue things like AI at no matter the cost. I think that's dangerous. Think about this. Prior to World War I, we were not outfitted to effectively blow up the whole earth with nukes. No, especially World War I, like, God, we only had planes for 10 years at that point, 15 years, something like that. Trench warfare, like, it was a meat grinder. You know, we were sending people over, fighting in trenches, all this stuff. Like, warfare was very different back then, and world conquest looked very different back then. And you know what we did? World War I, World War II, we freaking rolled up our sleeves. The boys and the men, we all got on boats and planes and flew over there and traded bullets with all kinds of people from all over the world. And people say the nuclear bombs ended Japan, but Stalin played a big part in Japan falling. But at the end of the day, it was all the boys and all the men and some ladies. They went and fought in the military. They went and fought those wars. They did what they had to do. They were willing to risk their lives to go do those things. And the ladies and the gals back home, or the guys that couldn't go fight, a lot of companies switched what they were doing, and instead of producing cars or refrigerators or whatever, they started producing guns and bullets and tanks. We rose to the occasion. I guess I say all this to say, like, this mentality that we always have to be on top has produced more problems and caused more wars, and is leading to some of the highest, I don't know what you're allowed to say on YouTube, as far as people choosing to unalive themselves from our military, the highest rates ever. And somehow we're on top. Something just tells me it ain't worth it. So I think our biggest problem, if we boil it all down, is we don't have core values. We don't have a core fundamental value. And I'm not advocating for this, that, or the other, or for a religious system, or for an ideal system. But if we don't have a common direction and we don't have a common value, this is why things fall apart. Is if we can't agree on basic things, then the arguments downstream, we'll go blue in the face arguing about literally everything. This whole video, all these different talking points that I was going on about tonight that he was bringing up, we wouldn't even be debating on if we just talked about the core argument that I don't agree with the database or the data set that these AI programs are using. So fundamentally, I don't think AI should even be on the table in any capacity at this point until we legislate something that works. AI has caused so many problems, and I don't think it has cured cancer yet, as far as I've checked. So we could have ended the video before we even started it. but because our government won't, because there's money involved, there we are. So, all right. Well, that was my rant on that. I watched this today and I was like, I didn't want to wait till tomorrow to do this. Mainly because I knew I was going to want to rant about stuff. And I don't know if anyone else is jumping on the stream tomorrow. But sometimes I just want to rant. That's it. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow night too. Friday and Saturday this weekend, I'm going to be live streaming with Clan McDonald Comics. If you're not familiar with them, they do a ton of Whatnot sales. They do Facebook Live and they do eBay Live. Clan McDonald Comics. Follow them over there. And then keep an eye out because I've got so much stuff, guys. I have so much stuff. I have comics. I've got sketch covers I've done. I'll give you a quick teaser here. Did like a little like Nick Cage as Superman. That's all hand drawn on there. Got some Ninja Turtles on sketch covers. So I'm actually driving out to Chicago, Naperville. And if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I'll be sharing details, but definitely follow Clan McDonald Comics. They've got the online shop. So I drew that on the side there. That was already printed. I put her on the side. That was fun. That's actually their comic book. So Clan McDonald Comics started a company called Tartan Publishing. I know it's backwards, but if you follow them, they will be posting all the stuff when we go live. And at this point, I probably have 3 short boxes of sketch covers. I'm also going to have quite a few just pieces of original art. Like that's one. That is my parody character of Rogue. Her name is Rouge. You know this because she wears red. And yeah, we'll be selling all kinds of stuff. So, but yeah, I'll be posting on Instagram, Facebook, follow Clan McDonald, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you. Hit that like button on the way out. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.